I don't know if you can think of a people who were more held back, more deprived, more sabotaged than African Americans. You took everything away from them and took them away from everything. They started in your country at less than zero, literally regarded and treated as subhuman, not allowed to learn to read or write or anything for hundreds of years. But you see, they come from a people of accomplishment to one degree or another, not a people of piracy and theft and appropriation. They come from a people who created and built and developed in their own land. And even though you did everything that you could possibly do to suppress them, to hold them down, to hold them back, and you're still doing that until today, nevertheless, I don't think anyone can dispute the fact that African Americans have become a global cultural superpower. Culturally, they're a superpower. Whatever cultural soft power that America has in the global South, it's African American.
Hello guys, welcome once again to the channel. I hope wherever you're watching, you're having a great time. Now, over time, when you try to understand Black history, you get to realize that there are a lot of things that have always been misrepresented. And I like how most speakers on this topic have always been forthright about how America has whitewashed Black history and hidden some of the things that Blacks need to have away from them. You know, I have watched a clip of Shahid Bolsen speaking about the Black History Month, and one thing that really caught me is the fact that he says that those who chose February, which is also the shortest month to be the month where people are commemorating this Black history, have also done injustice to Blacks, because how on earth would you choose the shortest month to be the month where we talk about Black history? This really tells you that they don't want this to be talked about for far too long. It is something that, in fact, they say is also segregated. So I came across this clip and I want you to take a listen to him debunking and dissecting this issue in the best way possible. Let's watch this, come back and share our thoughts in the end.
And especially the African American experience. It's literally not duplicated anywhere on earth in history. African Americans are a completely unique phenomenon as a people. Who they are culturally, what their history is, what their experience is, isn't duplicated anywhere on earth. You don't know where you came from. You don't know what country you came from. You don't know what culture you came from. You don't know what language you came from. You don't know what your religion was before. You, like I've said before, you're more American than anyone because you don't have any other identity. Actually, your entire identity is American-based. That's not the case of anyone else. I'm Irish American. I'm German American. I'm Italian American. I'm Jewish American. I'm this or that, the other. You can say African American, but you don't know anything about Africa. You don't even know which part of Africa. Africans don't call themselves that because I know my tribe. I have my language. I have my region, my country, my whatever. Like me saying European American. I'm not European. I'm specifically Irish and German. But you can't say that. You are American. You're the original Americans. You know? Everyone else is immigrants. You can't even be called immigrants. Yeah. You know? You're originally American. And your culture is as close to being the indigenous culture of America as there can be without you being the indigenous people. You know? You're the indigenous people of the entity called America, called the United States of America. Everything else came from elsewhere. Your culture is the only one that came from right there because you were cut off from everything else. You know, there's nobody else like that. There's nobody else like that in the world. There's no other culture like that in the world. The whole topic of race in America is radioactive. And to talk about race in America is like trying to do is like trying to perform brain surgery while wearing a hazmat suit, and the patient is on LSD and doesn't know that they need brain surgery, and thinks you're a monster and thinks you're attacking them. It's a very difficult topic to talk about. And I don't think that that's necessarily accidental. I think that they try to make this a very difficult topic to talk about. But the issue of Black History Month, subhanAllah. Well, look, put it in the context of history overall. In terms of the history of the people who decided that you get to have 1 month to talk about Black history. The history of the people who decided that that month, the month that will be dedicated to so-called Black history, will be the shortest month of the year. So talk about the history of this people, and you're talking about a history that is full of atrocities, that's full of criminal viciousness, and the character, the psyche, and the ethos of a people is comprised of their history. Their history gives birth to or forms their psyche, their ethos, and their character. But when you're talking about America specifically, but if you're talking about America and the West generally, they have a very serious, what in psychology would be a split personality disorder, in that their ethos is completely different from their character and their psyche. Their character and their psyche is the product of their history, but their ethos is not the product of their history directly. In other words, what I mean is their psyche and their character is genuinely the product of the atrocities that they've committed. It's genuinely the product of the criminal viciousness and brutality that they have inflicted on others, including each other. This actually exists in their psyche. This is a reality. The actual reality of their history does exist in their psyche and exists in their character, but the ethos that they have built has been built precisely for the purpose of denying that history. The ethos that they've built has been built precisely to cover up their deeds, to cover up and to hide their actions, and to deny their actions. So this has created a very fractured national psyche, a very fractured national identity, say, because the totality of your identity is like your character, your psyche, your ethos, and so forth, all of which is supposed to be congruent with your history. With other nations, their history is made of their deeds, it's made of their actions, what they learned from it, how they developed from that, how they were affected by that, and what kind of people they became as a result of all of that. That's for other nations. For the West, and especially for America, everything that made them who they are is denied. Therefore, also who they are, they deny. And one of the major factors of all of this, of course, is race. Specifically, well, not even race, but racism, white supremacy, and the dehumanization of so-called black people, the dehumanization of Africans, and their treatment of them. This is all denied. And the worst thing you can do, if you're talking about it as on an individual level, if you anthropomorphize the nation, as I'm doing, the worst thing you can do to someone who has a split personality is to confront them about their condition. Because they've built their whole way of coping in the world, their whole way of functioning in the world is based on these two elements of their identity never meeting, never being reconciled, always being compartmentalized. What needs to happen is for it to be confronted, it needs to be reconciled, it needs to be dealt with. They're never willing to do that. So you look at this reality of who they are, what they've done, and how they have built their the psyche that they have, and then the ethos that they desperately need to maintain. Put all of that as the context for Black History Month, which is your obligation in Black History Month, because this is an obligation that is being put on black people. in America. This isn't an opportunity, this isn't a celebration, this is an obligation being put on black people that you will agree to contain the totality of your history in 28 days in February, and what you will talk about during those 28 days in February is not going to make us too uncomfortable. Your obligation is that you will go along with the maintenance of our fake ethos, which requires you to be very, very careful about what you say about our deeds and our actions and what actually our psyche is. And this is a manifestation of that psyche, of that dominating psyche, of that oppressive psyche that has built the whole, this dominating and oppressive psyche that the ethos that they built is designed to deny and to pretend is not the case. The ethos that they built, of course, is not as oppressors, but as liberators, not as enslavers, but as saviors, as redeemers, not as punishers. The ethos that they built is the complete opposite of what their history shows they are and what they've been. And obviously you can never change, you can never become even the aspirational ethos, because that's all you can call it. The American ethos is an aspirational ethos at best. That's giving them benefit of the doubt that they aspire to be liberators, they aspire to be redeemers, they aspire to be saviors, they aspire to be good and righteous and freedom loving and fighters for justice and so forth, defenders of rights and all of that. We can, benefit of the doubt, say that they aspire to be that. But when you are applying it to yourself as if you are that, and as if there's any evidence whatsoever that you are that, then you'll never be it. So even if it is an aspiration, if you're claiming that you have already achieved it, well, then you never will achieve it. But they put Black History Month, a parentheses in the year when the totality of the African American experience has to be contained within this 28 days, and it has to be palatable. And the whole purpose of it is actually to celebrate us for giving you Black History Month. You know, and the same goes for all of these, in my opinion anyway, my unqualified opinion, the federal holidays, like they just gave it to Juneteenth, I think, last year or the year before.
Within the past 2 years, it's become a federal holiday.
Federal holiday, right? MLK Day, Martin Luther King Day, and so on. To me, this is absolutely, from again, my opinion, this is absolutely grotesque. The federal government granting these holidays or establishing these holidays, to me, is like the killer coming to the funeral of the one whom he killed and giving flowers to the widow. That's what these holidays represent to me, in my opinion. And I'm always reminded when Black History Month comes along, or when there's Juneteenth, or when it's Martin Luther King Day, or what have you, I'm always reminded of that scene in 12 Years a Slave, where the slave master, the Michael Fassbender character, arbitrarily, in the middle of the night, drunk, decides to wake up all the slaves and bring them into the mansion, bring them into the plantation house, and have them dance. And they know that what's expected of them is to pretend to be happy, to celebrate, to dance as the master requires, so that he can feel that he's a very magnanimous, very generous, very beneficent master. And how dare they not have fun? How dare they not show their absolute rapture at the great generosity of their great white master? And it's the most, in my opinion, it's the most grotesque form of oppression, where you're forcing someone not only to do something for your pleasure, for your enjoyment, and to make you feel good about yourself as an oppressor, but you also require them to smile while they're doing it. You require them to pretend to be happy and to pretend to enjoy it, and it makes an absolute mockery of all human emotion. To me, it's quite vicious, and I think that again, with regards to Black History Month, I think that it's important to see it in the overall context of the history of American society and Western civilization overall, and also to see it as what it is, which is the white power structure in America obliging Black people in America with regards to what they can and cannot celebrate about their history, what they can and cannot commemorate about their history. And in fact, also, that's the important word that I just said, celebrate, rather than mourn, rather than lament, rather than blame, rather than accuse, rather than seek justice. Celebrate your history. Don't bring the party down by reminding everyone about how terrible everything has actually been in this country for you, and how terrible this country has been to you. Celebrate your history. Be proud, because if you're not, then you're doing a disservice to other African Americans. You're doing a disservice to Black people. If you don't, this is our only opportunity. We've only got these 28 days to talk about how great Harriet Tubman was, to talk about how great Frederick Douglass was. We've only got these 28 days to talk about inventions that were innovated by Black people, and so on. Let's talk about
Washington Carver, Peanuts.
Precisely. Let's talk in these 28 days. This is the only 28 days we've got. Let's try to stick in as many Black achievers as possible, and not talk about the fact that just surviving in and of itself is an achievement. And let's talk about why that is.
Yes, sir.
That's my opinion, unfiltered. This is why I began by talking about you have to put all of this in the context of the split personality disorder that the West has and that America has. To understand that, like, for example, what you're talking about, like a Martin Luther King Day or a Juneteenth or Black History Month, and then the way that those holidays are, or rather, what sort of activities, what sort of commemorations are designated for those holidays. You're always told that this is empowering. And so we have to talk about, again, Black achievement, outstanding African Americans, success stories, and so forth, and heroes, and so on, because it's empowering and it's positive, and what the idea is that what Black people need, what African Americans need, what everybody needs is positivity. So let's not focus on the negative and what have you. But it's inescapable. The very fact that you have sandwiched this topic in, again, the shortest month of the year, it demonstrates the extent to which this population remains contained, remains suppressed, remains repressed, remains marginalized, remains sidelined. And then, like I said, this is why it reminds me of that scene in the film. If you haven't seen the film, there's a scene where the slave master just, I can't remember what prompted him, or if anything prompted him. He just got drunk and decides to go into the slave quarters, and he wakes everyone up arbitrarily and forces them all to come into his mansion and do a dance and pretend that we're all celebrating together or what have you. And don't you dare be negative. This is your opportunity to be positive. This is, don't bring down the mood. Just put on that party hat and eat some cake, and don't bring everybody down by talking about how terrible it is that you've got 28 days to talk about this. That's what these things mean. The point of all of these types of activities, the point of all of these types of holidays, all of these events, as with everything else in that society, the point of it is to maintain the compartmentalization of this split personality, to never bring these two elements of the personality, or these two elements of the identity, into what should be reconciliation, but would be conflict and confrontation, which would cause a complete meltdown if they actually have to confront that their ethos, as I said, their ethos is a completely fabricated illusion that does not, that only is connected to their history insofar as it exists to deny their history. It only exists to cover up their history. And so Black History Month, Martin Luther King Day, the scrubbing from history of Malcolm X, and many others, all of this is for the same purpose. It's to maintain the separation, the compartmentalization of the reality of what America is and what America was and who they are as a nation collectively. Obviously, I leave room for there to be individuals who somehow are able to save themselves from this radiation that has poisoned the entire society, black and white. But as a collective, as a nation, the sickness is there, and you have to keep this separate, because the reality of who they are and what they've done and who they are as a nation is completely unrelated to the ethos that they have created for themselves. It's completely unrelated. They're strangers, one from the other. The ethos that they've created, the character that they have invented, doesn't exist. It's a fiction. The American character is a fiction. It's a fictional character, because the reality of who America has been is one of the worst villains in human history, and the character that they've created is a hero. And so everything that they do, like a Black History Month or Martin Luther King Day or so on and so on, the reason that is established, the reason that it is given, and the way it is managed is for this purpose: to keep the ethos safe from the reality, to keep the fiction safe from the truth, to never let the two meet, because if they meet, it would be a catastrophe. It would be a psychological meltdown of the entire nation. All of this, you also have to understand, reframe it as this is the white power structure in America, basically affirming and admitting, we are never going to integrate your history into history, into the teaching of history. We will give you this time to talk about it, because it will never be integrated into our story, into the totality of our story, into our telling of actual history. We will even have apartheid in our telling of history. There's a black history, and then there's history. Officially, it's not called white history. There's black history, and then there's history. And we're never going to integrate your story into our story. This is history is whites only. Black history is black history. Segregated history. And same with women. We're never going to integrate your story into the totality of the story, because this story exists to maintain the fake ethos. This story, this history is a myth. And in that myth, you have no role. Because your actual role in reality, in the reality of the history of what we have done, destroys the myth. So you can't be in there. You can't be in the history that we tell. But we'll give you a month to talk about your history. But that's just a way of saying you're never going to be in the total history that we talk about. So the whole purpose is to maintain this segregation of the American narrative. There is only one prospect for change. Only one in America. There is only one prospect for change, and that is Islam. That's the only prospect for change. There is nothing at all, zero, that is contained within the cultural, civilizational toolbox of that society that can fix it. There is nothing. Everything that's in their toolbox will only make the situation worse. And every time they go into their toolbox, they do only make the situation worse.
Now, what a great speech from Shahid Bolsen. I think you will agree with me. Many of you who have got to know Shahid Bolsen from this channel have always told me that I continue featuring him because he understands how to dissect the American issues and the issues affecting blacks in the best way possible. And not only blacks, but every minority in America. So he's done justice to the topic, and here are my views about what's going on. Shahid Bolsen argues that the disenfranchisement of black Americans is not just a historical injustice, but a deliberate and ongoing strategy to maintain economic and political control. He sees the history of slavery, segregation, and the mass incarceration as a continuous system designed to exploit black labor while denying black people power and agency within the US economy and democracy. For Bolsen, the system did not end with emancipation, it merely changed forms. He often explains that capitalism in America was built on the backs of enslaved Africans, whose unpaid labor created the foundations of the nation's wealth. When slavery was abolished, the ruling class replaced it with sharecropping, convict leasing, and discriminatory labor practices to keep black people in the economic subservience. Bolsen highlights how each new stage of American capitalism adapted to preserve white dominance and black dependency. Bolsen also emphasizes that political disenfranchisement was intentionally tied to this economic control. Through voter suppression, redlining, and racially targeted policing, black Americans were systematically excluded from decision-making power. He argues that this was never accidental but central to ensuring that the poor, especially poor black communities, could not challenge the structures of wealth and privilege. He critiques liberal and conservative politics alike for perpetuating this circle. To Bolsen, both parties used racial divisions to distract the working class from unifying against economic injustice. By framing black poverty as a moral or cultural failure rather than a systematic one, elites protect the capitalist order that keeps all poor people, regardless of race, politically weak and economically dependent. Ultimately, Shahid Bolsen's view the history of black disenfranchisement as a mirror reflecting the moral bankruptcy of modern capitalism. He calls for a global awakening, a recognition that the struggle of black Americans is not an isolated racial issue, but a part of a larger fight against exploitation and inequality worldwide. That's it from Shahid Bolsen, and that's it from me. Share your thoughts down in the comment section. And if you're watching us for the first time, please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share. Thank you. Let's meet on the next one.